Dear students, good morning. Welcome to Law Excellence IAS. Let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 25th September 2020. The first article for discussion is Parliament Scrutiny on the Back Burner. What is the major role of Parliament in a democracy? It is an house where deliberation, discussion, and reconsideration of actions takes place. On the other way around, we can also say it is an institution to represent and to seek accountability in the government. In these circumstances, over years, parliamentary democracy appears to be weakening in India. One of the major reasons is misalignment between executive and the legislature. Checks and balances in parliamentary democracy, why they are weakening, that is the essential aspect of this particular article. When India became independent, many of the Western political thinkers thought that it cannot survive a parliamentary democracy. The reasons stated vary, the major reason being the diversity and lack of representative attitude or culture and authoritative mindset among the leadership. You know that charismatic leadership is accepted and revered in India. In these circumstances, Jawaharlal Nehru and then the prime ministers later, they ensured that the legitimacy of the parliament always prevails. But slowly, after the Indira Gandhi era, slowly the parliament's role in our day to day life started decreasing. The major reason being increased corruption among the parliamentarians, lack of seriousness towards discussions and deliberations, change in the composition of the parliament itself. But one structure which has come up in 1993 has made some difference to the parliamentary functioning. This is standing committees. These are department related standing committees. These committees ensure scrutiny of a bill or financial needs of the department or demands for grants which the department proposes, etc. It is also a very good training ground for young MPs who wants to enter into parliament. That's why it is popularly stated that standing committees have made the work of the parliament continuous, away from the public glare. So normally consensus prevails and party positions gets changed in the committees. Committees also can take experts' opinion as and when required. Today, the government is not willing to refer the bills to the department related standing committees. It means that a closer scrutiny of the bills is getting avoided. It is not in the good interests of the parliamentary democracy and also the good interests of democratic ethos per se. This is what author is trying to say here. The next is Doha Kabul journey as a road to nowhere. This article is about intra Afghanistan negotiations. There are three major parties in this: US, Afghan government, and Taliban. These three parties have different agendas and different end objectives. Let us take the Afghanistan government. They want to have a stable democratic setup with the protection of rights for minorities and women. And Taliban want exactly the opposite. They are looking for an Islamic emirate where medieval laws or medieval way of life is practiced in the name of purity. As we go to America, it wants to get out of Afghanistan as soon as possible, and Mr. Trump wants to gain a victory of moving America out of Afghanistan war. He wants to do that before presidential elections itself. So when these three people have different objectives, then peace is going to be elusive. And when you come to Taliban, the biggest thing which they think favorable to them is the violence they can cause. So violence of the Taliban is making the Afghan government and US defensive. Until now, they did not sign any ceasefire agreement. And once these US troops, peacekeeping troops, they go out of Afghanistan, these people are expected to resort to violence like never before. Coming to regional powers like India, Pakistan, Iran, these countries wanted to have their own say in the Afghan peace process. India is apprehensive that once Taliban gets back to helm of affairs in Afghanistan, it is a security threat to it. And Pakistan wants to see Afghanistan as its backyard for its strategic interests. So everyone have their own self-interest in Afghanistan. So it is naive to think that Doha talks will lead to some peace settlement in Afghanistan. The next article is cesspool. You know, cess and surcharge are non divisible. It means whatever the revenues coming to center in the form of taxes have to be divided between center and the states as per the recommendations of Finance Commission. Now, 14th Finance Commission stated that 42% of the divisible pool of taxes have to go to the states and remaining has to stay with the center. Now, the center is more and more resorting to cess and surcharge methods to increase its sources of revenue. These cess and surcharge they are meant for a specific purpose or end use. In these circumstances, the money will be first collected into consolidated fund of India, then it has to go to a reserve fund designated for the definite end purpose. Let us see few things over here. The designated reserve fund is not created for many of the cess which are levied on the people. And second, even though reserve fund is created, the money is not transferred from consolidated fund of India into this reserve fund. And finally, in the calculation of the fiscal deficit, this cess is also included as the revenue of the government. That way, the fiscal deficit calculations are also going wrong. These are the observations made by the audit report of Comptroller and Auditor General of India. What he observed, let us see here. Not a paisa of 1.25 lakh crore rupees of crude oil sales is transferred to Oil Development Industry Fund. Second, GST compensator is set says close to 47,000 crore rupees is not transferred to the states and is still lying in Consolidated Fund of India. Whatever the compensatory cess transfers to the states, these are seen or shown as grants in aid to the states in accounts. This kind of account manipulation is not good for federal politics or trust of the people in the government. What is required at this point of time is transparency and bridging the gaps between center and the states. Center has to take a step towards it. Greater transparency builds greater trust, and the trust deficit between the center and the states does more harm to Indian federal structure like never before. The next is code debate. You know that labor codes are being passed in the parliament. Three labor codes are being passed. One is related to industrial relations. The second one, it is related to occupational safety, health and working conditions. And final one, it is related to the social security of the workers. There are many objections to this. It is leading to market friendly reforms which can bring in hire and fire in the industrial sector. Let us see the contentious issues in this. Now, any company which has employees up to 300 need not inform the government about its closure or take permission to retrench the employees. Obviously, it brings in a condition of hire and fire. And second, the definition of factory is changed. The threshold is increased from 10 to 20 in companies with no electricity and 20 to 40 with places with electricity. Then only they will be called as a factory, and whatever the labor codes are there apply over there. In this context, lack of enough job security, will it be good for improving the economic productivity? If you go for Japanese example, economic productivity comes with job security, and there is no uniform theory which says that lesser the job security, more is the economic productivity. With regard to labor codes, what the government would have done, balance the economic productivity with the workers' welfare. This balance appears to be missing. On the other side, the Social Security Code, it is providing for National Social Security Board, which can ensure social security benefits for both organized and unorganized workers. and we have to see the working of this particular new institution that is coming into existence. These are the points we need to remember from this. The next article, sowing seeds of doubt. It is in the context of the farm bills. Three farm bills are being passed by the parliament. In this context, farmers' agitations started throughout the length and breadth of India. The existing APMCs will be diluted and new private mandis are expected to come where no state taxes or fees will apply. Obviously, there is no level playing field between APMCs and the private mandis. So, private mandis, as they don't need to pay any state taxes, obviously the procurement of the grain is much cheaper, or the benefits to the private mandis can be much higher. So, there is no level playing field. Obviously, the APMCs are at a disadvantage and they soon face a challenge of existence itself. Obviously, APMCs provide for many of the jobs in India, and many of the commission agents who are dependent in working in APMCs will soon expected to lose their jobs. Obviously, in private mandis, large corporate companies can take up a possible position, and the local cartels which can develop put the small and marginal farmers at disadvantage. Second, what the government is repeatedly saying, farmer gets the choice to sell his crop wherever he wants. In this case, farmer, does he have the ability to sell is the question. Having a proper transport facility, affordability, this all will determine his choice. Choice will not automatically come with market reforms. Choice plus capabilities an can give a chance for the farmers to gain out of these market reforms. And finally, the commission agent who is called Ardhya, this man is an integral part of the farmer's life. He provides for the advance to the farmer to sow the seed and he will buy the crop. This relationship is going on for generations. Replacement of this commission agent with companies, corporates, etc., how it will work in the economic scenario of the village has to be observed. Second point is, many a times in India, lack of financial access to banking sector is the major problem to the farmer. In these cases, a commission agent will bridge that particular gap. Today, he is going to be irrelevant, and how it will affect the access to finances to the farmers is a great worry. These are being discussed over here. And MSPs, the government says that MSPs will not go away. Government may announce the MSPs. If government does no procurement with just announcing the MSPs, it will not be of much use to the farmer. So, a statutory status to MSPs and government procurement is what the farmers are demanding now. Next is Vodafone wins $2 billion tax case. Bilateral investment treaties, which are signed between various sovereign countries, are the basis for investment flows. When government has applied the tax laws retrospectively, it was violative of this bilateral investment treaties. On this, Vodafone, which has acquired the Hutchinson SR in India for $11 billion, went to international arbitration. In this international arbitration, they won the case, and India is supposed to pay certain legal fees and $2 billion back to Vodafone. And the second thing is, it also brought a lot of disrepute to India as an investment destination. So, the government of India shall avoid ad hoc tax approaches. It has to provide for a predictable and sustainable approach to the investors to be a destination of investment. Small farmers happiest today, says PM. Prime Minister has started counter propaganda to the farm bills, or the movement against the farm bills which is going on. What he says is choice to the farmers have increased, and with this choice they get a greater bargaining power. And with regard to labor bills, it is more gender sensitive, and women will get the equal wages, and there are many social security benefits to the unorganized workers. This is the official version of the government which Prime Minister is talking. So these are the articles for today. Thank you very much and have a great day.